Hey folks, Dr. Rob Jones here with my good friend Lisa Allen at Lisa Allen Fitness. So we've been following her journey, our journey on going from pain and dysfunction to no pain and lots of function. So again, previous progressions, right? Making sure her body was set up right as far as the stability, mobility continuum, intra-abdominal pressure, proper movement where movement should occur, stability where stability should occur, okay? Watch the previous videos to see how we trained intra-abdominal pressure, how we trained the glute activation standpoint from the ground and then standing. We did a previous video on goblet squatting. Now, we're going to do deadlifting, because after she squatted, I said to Lisa, I said, what do you want to do? She said, well, I want to learn how to conventional deadlift. And I said, well, okay, we're not going to conventional deadlift because it's a little bit too hard on the back for folks like us of advanced years and broken down backs. Reason being, let me get in there for 1 second. When you conventional deadlift, it's really hard to basically get enough hip flexion to ensure that your back stays in a good position. Also, when you pick the weight up from the ground in a conventional deadlift, the center of gravity of the bar is going to be a little bit more forward, okay? So you can see me camera angle-wise here. If I'm set up here, basically my load is being pulled forward and there's a little bit more stress here. So for people like Lisa and I who have some degenerative change in our back and some instability, I like to teach a wider stance sumo deadlift, okay? So we get over into this position and we get our hands inside the legs just like this, and now we can pull the bar right back to the shins while the butt is back. And if you were to come from the side here, you can see that the bar is basically inside my base of support. So I'm pulling that bar right along the midline of my body. It's not going to come forward and create a shear mechanism that is really going to mess my back up. So let's go ahead and sit up here and let's show everybody what a beast you are. Now, say what you were saying off camera a minute ago about your
checklist.
Checklist, exactly.
So we created a checklist. Rob created a checklist for me, and we always go top down. So I always remember to keep my neck and chin in good position. I always remember abdominal brace. I grip the ground with my toes and bring my knees out. And I go through that checklist every single time, and I never skip it, because that way I ensure that I'm prepared for every rep. And I don't have room for error. You know, if you're 20, maybe you do, but I don't.
Yeah, and that's what it comes down to with people like Lisa and I. There's maybe a little error that we can get away with, but as the loads get heavier, the demands get heavier, so you have to be perfect on every lift, okay? Now, the checklist is going to be a little bit different for everybody based on their demands of their body, but again, her top down is a great analogy, so let's go ahead and get you set up onto that bar. And again, we want ideal function out of the brain so it can send signals to the extremities. We want ideal function out of the spine so it can send safety signals back to the brain so the brain knows everything's okay. And then we want stability through the foot, knee, and pelvis so the glutes, the quads, and the hamstring can exert lots of force on the ball and socket joints of the hips to drive that up. Now, so we go through our checklist, pack the neck, we got good intra-abdominal pressure. We always exaggerate what she just did, pushing the knees to the side to feel glute med come on. Now before she lifts, I made her do one last thing. Push her knees back towards my hands a little bit. Now what this does is it creates a ton of pressure through the hamstrings and glutes, and that is like we talked about before, it's like pulling a bow back, so you're creating this massive elastic force, and then you're ready to go. Mm-hmm. And you would just pull it right from the ground. So she was holding that for a little bit, so let's go ahead and do that. And you'll see how easily this just comes right off the ground. This was terrifying for Lisa initially. Now this is baby games to her. So we go through our checklist. She feels that pressure, and it comes up perfectly. Now, we're going to set it down very distinctly. We're going to reverse the motion, and then when she gets to her knees, I say drop it. And I just have her drop the bar. The reason I have her drop the bar is I see a lot of people. Can I step in there? I will see a lot of people do this sort of thing when they deadlift. They'll go speed, they'll go up, down, up, down, up. Okay, if you're a freak of nature and you're super strong and you've never had any injuries, go ahead and do that. But when you get a little bit more advanced in age like we are, you have to use the stability mechanisms that we have in place. You have to reset. Because if you use momentum on a move like this and you make a little mistake, it's over. You're gonna screw your back up. So again, you go through your checklist, okay? Center of gravity over your base of support. Neck is packed. Knees to the side, hips back. So you feel this nice tension, intra-abdominal pressure, and this thing is gonna come off the ground like it's nothing. Okay, and then when we go to set it down, we reverse the motion, hip hinge back, knees to the side, get a little bit below the knees, and we just drop it down. So there's your good conventional, not conventional deadlift, there's your good sumo deadlift. So again, if you have really good hip mobility, you may be able to do a conventional deadlift. But again, because the weight is in front of you, and because you may have a little bit of a block in your hip right here when you get down, when you get into a sumo setup, you basically can push open here, and that's going to clear more flexion space in your hip so you can drop down further and spare your spine. Now, I want to mention one more thing about the deadlift, and that is when you are accessing this bar, when you're about to pick it up, if it doesn't feel right, get out of there, bail, okay? So when I had Lisa all set up there, she stood up again, because that was kind of a long time to hold that position. She knows she doesn't want to take risk. We have to feel the elastic energy building up in the posterior chain, which is back through here, before we pick it up. And it's really the same thing if you're going to pick your kid up off the ground, if you're going to pick up a garden tool or anything like that in your life. Get into these positions. Feel for the elastic energy right there. I know I've got total energy through here. My back is fine. Pop right up. Okay? So, Lisa, let's go through one more rep.
The other thing I want to mention that I think has been really important to my recovery, and it's something that I've only seen you do, is he always gives me priming moves for whatever we're getting ready to do. I have priming moves, I have the move, and then I have a recovery move. That has been amazing for the difference in my body.
So what she means by priming move is what we need to do to tell the brain and tell the nervous system, hey, get ready, let's rev the engine before we take off from the line. So generally for a deadlift, we did some sort of half side bridge. So if you go back and watch one of the other videos where we're on the side, turning, sitting back, getting that glute mechanism ready. And then the corrective that we do afterwards is usually something to re-centralize the disc. Lay on your stomach, maybe do some press-ups, that sort of thing, or maybe do some chair SPHINX to kind of get the thoracic spine to open up, because again, we have wear and tear on our spines. So after we do something that's a little bit more high risk, there's a little load to the spine, but you can mitigate that really quickly with some of those correctives afterwards. So let's do one more pull, and I want to mention one more thing. We have to make sure that we don't get too much foot flare, okay? If you turn, actually, let's angle your foot out too much, more. A lot of people will deadlift from here, and that's actually okay if you can get your knee out here and really access your glutes. But if you don't have a lot of groin flexibility and hip flexibility, it's going to be really quite a bit harder. Your knee's going to come in, you're going to strain that knee, and you're going to put load on your back. So let's not get much more than about 10 degrees of foot flare this way. So just a little bit is okay. But if you can't get into this position, abduct, and feel that contraction, then your foot's flaring too much, okay? So there's that, and then again, before we lift, at the moment it's coming off the ground, we gotta feel massive tension through here. So knees to the side, knees back, pull that bar towards your shins, intra-abdominal pressure, pops right back up. Now when we set it down, hip hinge back, knees to the side, drop it, bam. Successful lift. So there you go. Now you know how to deadlift if you go through these steps. It is safe and it's practical because you've got to get things off the ground. You've got to pick your kids up. You've got to get in and out of your car. So again, practice these things and you're going to go from no function and pain to lots of function and no pain.
Too powerful.
Yes, powerful.
Powerful.
All right, until next time, at Lisa Allen Fitness, heydrrob.com, and on the socials. And as always, don't forget to protect your back.